Now, the pop art experience, my first performance as Paul Groovy, after McGee gave me the wonderful name that I've been lumbered with for the last 30 odd years, was actually at the Creation Records first Christmas party. That was my first live performance as Paul Groovy. I had a backing band made up of Alan McGee, Joe Foster, Jowhead from the Swell Maps, members of the Jasmine Minks, members of Biff Bang Pow, members of the Dan Tracy. I sung alongside my hero. All those, and the legend Everett True. We shared vocals. We did Roadrunner, Painter Man, and Sister Ray. So that was the first ever Paul Groovy live performance. That was in December 1983. February 1984, the Pop Art Experience made its debut, which was just me, a guitar, a drummer that I'd borrowed from the main band, and I just told him to hit the drum for 5 minutes. And I just did a version of Hurricane Fighter Plane by the Red Crayola for 5 minutes and spray painted a sheet while I was playing guitar badly. Then that was the live debut of the Pop Art Experience. I was supporting the mod band, so no one knew what to do. This mad guy with a guitar that he couldn't play properly, smashing the hell out of it, spraying paint on a sheet that was in front of the drummer, who was just doing a simple beat behind him. I got away with that for a couple of gigs, and then the band started becoming a band. The band that I supported that night, the Now, their singer, Steve, the Now split, so Steve decided to join me on guitar. Why not? So we then went out as a duo, getting we just turn up at people's gigs. Need a support band, we'll do it. Then we decided we wanted a drummer. We're still in 1984. In August 84, we found Joanne, female drummer, rare for that time. We wanted Mo Tucker from the Velvet Underground. That was what we were after. We found Joanne. She'd never played drums before in her life. Do you want to be in our band? Yeah. So she went out and bought a drum kit, kept the snare and the floor tom, used the bass drum as a bedside table, threw the hi-hat in the bin, and then we did our first gigs. And of course, we're thinking, actually, we're quite getting into this now, so we better get a bass player because we'd booked a recording session. There's no point doing things properly. We booked the recording session for the 1st of December, and the week before, about the 23rd, 24th of November, we met our bass player, Steve. Didn't actually rehearse with him, we just chatted with him. He said, yeah, I can play this. Okay then, we'll meet you at the Crystal Rooms next Saturday. And we went into the studio and recorded 4 songs in 8 hours, mixed as well. And one of those was one of the tracks that ended up on the Against the Tide tape that Ian put out. That was Tune In, Turn On, Trip Out. And that was the first recording session. And from that point on, we just gigged whenever we felt like it. We'd never rehearse. The only time we ever rehearsed was when we had a gig coming up. So you get bands who go in, oh, can't go out tonight, we've got a rehearsal. You know, rehearse every Tuesday and every Thursday, and then they'd have a band meeting on the Friday. We never saw each other. You know, we didn't socialise together at all. And one of us would go, right, I've got a gig booked for us at the Labour Club on 2 weeks' time. So we'll get a rehearsal together, run through the songs. Me and Steve might have a new song that we want them to learn. They'd learn that. The gig would come around, we'd play it, and that would be it. We wouldn't see each other until the next one. You know, looking back on it, it all seemed to just grow organically. You know, from me doing it on my own, to Steve joining, to Joanne joining, to the other Steve joining, to Ian putting out Tune In, getting bigger and bigger gigs. And then we did the album for a bite back as well, Let's Crash the Blue Bus. We never said, this is what we want, this is where we're going to be in 3 years' time. And it wasn't a career. Music for us wasn't a career, it was a way of life. You know, we were just as happy playing Gosport Labour Club to 50 or 60 people as we were doing a gig up in London to 50 or 60. It didn't matter. The main thing was just being out there and doing it and enjoying it. We always used the mantra that as soon as it stops being fun, we stop doing it. And to their credit, every member of the band did that, and that's the way it should be. But there was we didn't have career objectives. We had a couple of ambitions, me and Steve, that we always used to joke about, which was 1, release a record, 2, get that record played on John Peel, and 3 appear on Top of the Pops. Well, we made a record, we got played on John Peel, but we didn't make Top of the Pops. But 2 out of 3 strike rate, that can't be bad, can it? Come on. When the pop art experience finished, I thought about putting a new band together, and we thought, try something different. So I got our 2 old bass players, Jimmy, who was in the band when it finished, and Steve, who was the original bass player, and me on vocals, and those 2 playing bass. And we were aiming for sort of Fetus on the Wheel, Wise Blood sort of sound, a really earthy, dark, bass-driven sound. We tried it, and it just didn't work. None of us knew what we were doing, really. None of us really liked where it was going. So we stopped. And that was it. End of. Kill. And then after that, it was just the occasional pop art experience reunion. And that would be it, as far as the Groovies were concerned. You know, we're still doing it. I've got a gig coming up here soon. But yeah. End of. Bands split up all the time. It's only when a band is big, really big, that anyone really notices. You know, the Portsmouth music scene is littered with bands that have split up. The band's on Against the Tide. Okay, a few of them are still going. Empty Fish are still going. We saw them Sunday night. The Pop Art Experience, still going. Brand new lineup, but we're still there. But all those other bands, if you look through the band members, if you were to follow their family trees onwards from Against the Tide, you'll see them in half a dozen different bands. Bands split up. It's the nature of the game. It's only when you get massive that people really care. On the local scene, they're not going to worry too much. It's a shame. You know, there's some local bands that have split up that provided great evenings out and recorded great songs and were brilliant to see. And it'd be nice if they were to do those, you know, to get back and do the gigs. But they're gone. You move on. There's always another riff out there somewhere.